I'm going to go ahead and make absolute value equations and absolute value equations day 2 in the same video. I know this is over 2 different days, however, they're very related topics, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it in the same video to save a little bit of time for me. So let's go ahead and talk about absolute value equations. We're going to do some of the starter today because it is relevant. Keep in mind, absolute value is defined as the distance from 0. We're finding out how far a number is away from 0 on, say, like a number line situation. Another way to think about it is our answer will always be positive. Now, when we're solving an absolute value equation, there are going to only be 2 potential answers. We're going to end up with 2 solutions or no solutions. The fancy symbol for that is a 0 with a line through it like so. Okay? Keep in mind from last time that we end up with no solution if we take the absolute value of something and then we end up with a negative. Every other time we're going to expect 2 solutions. Okay? So now we're going to start solving absolute value equations. Here are the steps. The first one is get rid of anything outside of the absolute value. We're not going to worry about this one for today. That one will show up tomorrow. So we can just jump straight to step 2. We're going to split into 2 equations and get rid of the absolute value sign. Here's the reasoning why. You have this little nugget on the inside of the absolute value signs. We want to know what numbers that little nugget make 9 and negative 9. The reason is the absolute value of 9 is 9. The absolute value of negative 9 is 9. So we need to figure out what makes this little nugget right there on the inside equal to these 2 numbers. The easiest way to do this is to split it into 2 different equations. So let's go ahead and do so. We're going to get the absolute value of x plus 9 is equal to 9. We're also going to take the absolute value of x plus 9 is equal to negative 9. At this point, we can go ahead and get rid of the absolute value signs. You don't even have to put them there in the first place. We're also going to treat these as 2 separate equations. I'm just going to put a little barrier in between them so we recognize that they have nothing to do with each other at this point. And we solve each of them. We can subtract by 9. Giving us x is equal to 0. We can also subtract by 9 on the other side, giving us x is equal to negative 18. So the 2 numbers which make the absolute value of x plus 9 equal to 9 are going to be x is equal to 0 and negative 18. That is us writing as a single answer. We can go ahead and check our work as well. This is not necessary, but it is helpful to see. 0 plus 9 is equal to the absolute value of 9. 0 plus 9 is 9. Absolute value is going to be 9. Same thing for negative 18. Negative 18 plus 9 becomes negative 9, which if you take the absolute value of that becomes 9. Let's go ahead and keep working through the rest of the equations. Let's look at the next one. We have x minus 6 is equal to 14. So we can go ahead and write x minus 6 is equal to positive 14. And x minus 6 is equal to negative 14. From here, once again, we're going to solve it like how we already know. So we're going to add 6 to both sides. I'm going to kind of solve both equations at the same time, but it's okay to go one or the other. And that will give us x is equal to 20 and x is equal to negative 8. So now we're going to go ahead and write it as one answer. That will be x is equal to negative 8, comma 20. Now you'll notice I wrote them in a slightly different order than I did last time. That is just fine. You are welcome to do that. Order in this particular case doesn't really matter. It's not something I'm going to pay attention to. Let's go ahead and keep going. We have 2x plus 1 is equal to 13. So we can go ahead. We want to find out what value of x makes this little nugget equal to 13. But we also want to know what makes that nugget equal to negative 13. So let's go ahead and set up our equations. We can solve each one. I'm just going to kind of solve them both at the same time. I'm hoping at this point solving an equation is something we are very familiar with. That'll give us 2x is equal to 12, 2x is equal to negative 14. We can divide each by 2. And we're going to get the answer of x is equal to positive 6 or negative 7. Now this last one's a little different, because we take the absolute value of something and we end up with a negative number. Is there any number that once you take it, you're going to end up with a negative? No. So in this particular case, there is no solution. That's kind of a tricky little one. All right, so let's go ahead and look at day 2. We have to exit out of the marking. That'll let us swipe over. Day 2. Very similar to what we did day 1, only this time we have to pay attention to that first rule, which is get rid of anything outside of the absolute value. Get rid of anything outside the absolute value. So for example, notice we have a 1 right here. It's outside the absolute value. So before we do anything else, we have to get rid of that 1. You'll notice it's a subtracted 1, so we're going to go ahead and add 1 to both sides, giving us x minus 5, take the absolute value of that, is equal to 11. The single most common mistake I see on this next assessment is splitting into 2 separate equations before we've gotten rid of this 1. Don't let that be you. Get rid of anything outside the absolute value first, and then we can talk about it. And now looking at this, I made a mistake. Do you see the mistake that I made? I went 11 plus 1, and instead of writing, I wrote 11 again. That should be 12. From here, we're going to break into 2 equations. One positive, one negative. Same thing that we did from here on out as yesterday. So it's going to be x minus 5 is equal to 12, and x minus 5 is equal to negative 12. From here, we solve. We add 5 to both sides. That will give us x is equal to 17, and x is equal to negative 7. Last step, write as a single answer. That'll be x is equal to negative 7 and 17. That's an ugly box, but it'll do what we need it to do. All right, let's keep working. We have the absolute value of 3x minus 3 plus 9 is equal to 42. So let's go ahead through our steps again. Get rid of anything outside the absolute value. In this case, that's a 9. It's being added, so we have to undo the addition by subtraction. And that will give us the absolute value of 3x minus 3 is equal to 33. Lots of 3's. We can go ahead and split it into two equations, one positive, one negative. So let's go. 3x minus 3 is equal to positive 33, and 3x minus 3 is equal to negative 33. From here we solve. I like to kind of solve them both at the same time, but it's okay to do one and then the other. That'll be 3x is equal to 36, as well as 3x is equal to negative 30. Divide by 3. That will be x is equal to 12 and negative 10. Let's keep going. We have 5 times x plus 15 is equal to 40. Now, this is kind of a confusing bit of notation. A lot of students are going to kind of find this little hard to just look at and know what it's talking about. In this case, there's an implied multiplication right there. And so what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So let's go ahead and divide each side by 5. And that'll give us x plus 15, absolute value, is equal to 8. So from here, we can go ahead and split it into two separate equations. X plus 15 is equal to 8, and x plus 15 is equal to negative 8. So we can subtract 15 from both sides, because our goal is to get the x all by itself, and the thing keeping it from being by itself is the positive 15, so we add a negative 15, and we're going to get x is equal to negative 7, and x is equal to negative 23. We can go ahead and just write that as a single answer for the last portion of this. Oops. We have one more on this page to work on. We have the absolute value of x plus 1 over 6 is equal to 1. Let's go ahead and get rid of that 6. It's currently being divided. The opposite of division is multiplication. That will give us the absolute value of x plus 1 is going to equal 1 times 6, which is 6. From here, we can go ahead and split it into two separate equations. We get absolute value of x plus 1 is equal to 6. The absolute value of x plus 1 is equal to negative 6. Split it into two equations. That'll give us x is equal to 5 and x is equal to negative 7. You should be set to do your homework, but before you go, I just want to give you a reminder. Fractions may happen. I would not be shocked if some of your answers include fractions. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've done it wrong. As always, let me know if you have additional questions.